Hey folks, this is Rebecca Lane on Embrace the Bold, the School of Arts and Entertainment radio program where you get to learn all about the amazing humans, artists, and faculty and students who make up the School of Arts and Entertainment at Valencia College. And we are so glad to be back. Happy fall 2023. It's been a great summer break, and we have an amazing season coming up for you. So, first of all, our conversation is with our new technical director, Fred Lynn. Say hi, Fred.
Hello, everybody.
All right. And before we get into this conversation, I just want to remind you that we have an amazing art season coming up. So the very first thing we've got is a gallery show, Vanishing Florida. These are photographs by Kevin Boldenow, and that is opening on Thursday, September 21st with our gallery opening event. After that, on Friday, September 22nd at 7:30, we open our fall reading series. That is a stage reading number 1. There will be 3, How I Learned to Drive by Paula Vogel. This is directed by local director Aradana Tawari. I think it'll be fantastic. And just so you know, this year, instead of a fall musical, we are doing 3 readings, and that's what's making up our reading series. So join us next year for our traditional large-scale musical, but this year we get this fantastic smattering of readings, and they're all free. So please come and join us for that. After the fall reading, How I Learned to Drive, we also have another reading happening October 21st at 7:30. That will be the brand new musical, The Artist and the Scientist, that was workshopped at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center a number of years ago. And then we have the Florida Museum of Cursed Artifacts, a haunted attraction, opening Friday, October 27th. And following that, we have a number of musical events. So our fall is going to be jam-packed and just as fantastic as ever. So just that preview, keep us in mind as you plan your events. And now I'd like to turn the conversation to Fred. So Fred has just joined the School of Arts and Entertainment as our brand new technical director. Fred, when did you start at Valencia?
Right at the beginning of July.
Okay, so you've been here for almost 2 months.
Just about.
Wow. So what did you do before that?
Well, for most of my career, I've been a attraction designer for different companies. I've worked for Universal Studios. I've worked for Walt Disney World. I worked for Sun Asia, Hard Rock Cafe. I've worked for several different smaller companies like iTech Productions and Richard Crane Productions, DesignWorks International, and I worked in 18 different countries.
Wow, that's great. So what did you call yourself? Not an event designer.
Attraction designer.
An attraction designer. So what does that mean?
Well, I would get involved in designing dark rides where you're inside in a light-controlled kind of environment, and you go from scene to scene. I've done the dark rides where there's a lot of water involved. And in that case, I was working on Earthquake out at Universal Studios for Richard Crane Productions. And then I do iron rides. Iron rides are your roller coasters and your hybrid roller coasters and some of the kind of bizarre things that we've come up with backwards sliding, upward sliding, and every other way sliding. So I do those. I've done some of those strange and macabre spinning teacup ideas to try to take it to a new level. And I've done haunted houses. I've laid out entire theme parks. I did an entire theme park in China, in Dolan, for Sun Asia, and that was a park called Dango's Dino World.
Dangle's Dino World.
Yeah, Dango was the executive director of the company, and he was the one that brought me in. So we named it after him. And it was a smaller park, but the most amazing thing about that was as I was drawing and designing, sending those over to China, they were building it.
Wow.
And so they had a lot of things in the wrong place, and they had to tear it down and put it in another place because they don't even use building permits. They just go.
Oh, my goodness.
And I've done some haunted attractions, including a restaurant in Germany. And
Okay.
it had things like, as I would catch your attention looking at something that's going on in a corner, the table would lift and it would turn and then it would stop. And when you kind of refocused on what you were doing before, you're sitting in front of your neighbor's meal. So, and I had a lot of other real interesting gags to it, and that was a lot of fun. And I've done some show work where we had, and similar to some things that you see out at Disney. And one of them was the Mysterious Egg. And that was actually a traveling show. In Germany, the traveling shows are still incredibly popular. So it was as though you went to an archaeological dig, and there was a dig tent. And you go in, and there's a central arena. And in the pre-show, they said, we found this amazing, huge dinosaur egg. We have no idea what this egg actually was attached to as far as an animal species, because it's just so big. And we're going to x-ray that today, and you're going to see it. So the crowd all sits around and exciting, and the guys come out in lab coats, and they're standing around this big giant egg. And they've got these huge x-ray machines that are around it. And they say, all right, we're getting ready to x-ray this. This is going to be a wonderful opportunity because you got all the screens around and you can see what's inside this egg. Mm-hmm. So they start up the machine, and there's this little pops and whizzes and bangs. And then all of a sudden things are getting a little bit more out of hand. And the lights go off. And there's still sparks and popping, but you see the screens kind of fizz on as the x-ray machine did not go off. And as it's passing over the egg, something in it moves.
Uh-oh.
And then it really starts to move. And now it's starting to shake, and it's shaking the table here and shaking the table there. And the lights all go off, and the that were starting to come up, they go off again, and the x-ray machine goes off.
Uh-oh.
And then the lights slowly come up, popping and fizzing, and there's something that has come out of this egg, and it's looking at you.
Oh, man.
And it's menacing, it's drooling, it's got huge claws and these huge teeth. And it's getting ready to come out of the egg, and all of a sudden there's a shake and pop whiz, and the lights go off. And then they come on, and he's out of the egg.
Oh, boy.
You don't know where he is, but all of a sudden you feel things kind of whipping around your legs, and you feel some drool coming down from the ceiling, and you know it's around you, but you have no idea what's going on. And the lights are going on and they're going off, and finally they get things stabilized, and the lab tech comes out and he says, hey, wow, that was amazing. Apparently that wasn't a dinosaur egg, and we found something that was alien. And well, folks, we're so glad you came and visited. And as you're out in the park, if you should see it, would you come back and tell us?
Oh, boy. That's fun.
I write a lot of these storylines, including that one, and a lot of things for Titanic and some of the other big projects I've worked on.
That's fantastic. So how did you get into design? Like, what was your entry point into all of this?
You know, that's a good question, because there really is no, and especially then, there weren't any programs out for themed entertainment design, not even in Los Angeles. I came up as an architect.
Okay.
And I went to school at Michigan State University, and I went to graduate school at Harvard University.
And what drew you to architecture?
Well, I loved art. As a matter of fact, I put my first painting in the Detroit Institute of Arts when I was in 6th grade. It was a big thing, all the cameras and stuff. I didn't know what to do with myself. But I realized after a while that you don't make much money in art at that time, because everybody thought you just did art because you loved it. It had nothing to do with getting paid. So I said, well, you know, I got to eat. And I had an interest in drawing and drafting. So I decided to go to school for architecture.
Okay.
Once I got through that end of my career, I worked a little bit in Lansing, Michigan, and on some smaller projects. And I got an opportunity when I came down to visit my twin brother in Jacksonville, Florida, to kind of look around a little bit. And I said, well, you know, let me put together a resume and send it out. So I sat in the hotel room with this old beat up typewriter, and I typed out a resume. I sent it to G and Jensen Architects, and they didn't have a position at the time, but they sent it around to others. And before I left on my vacation, I had a job with Logan and Schaefer Architects there on Riverside Avenue in Jacksonville, Florida. When I went there, I started working on high-rise.
Okay.
I did mostly 22 to 28-story buildings. And they were resort type of buildings. They were all hospitality. And I think one of them they did convert into a condominium, but not after it was completed under me. They did that later. And I kind of got bored with it after a while because, one high-rise is like another high-rise is like another high-rise. After a while you go to sleep and your hands are still moving. So I wanted to have a little bit more challenge. And I was going through one of the rags and looking at different job opportunities. And there was a company here in Orlando that was working with Universal Studios, and they needed a director of design.
Okay.
So I sent down a little quick resume, and they asked me in, and within a week, I was working in the theme park industry. I had no idea about how to do any of this. So I was working right with Universal Studios, so I had the yellows and screamers. So I had to get my act together very fast and learn how to do this type of work. I was working on 4 projects when I went there. The first freestanding Hard Rock Cafe at Universal, I designed that building, and I was the project manager on that. And I was working on Video Home Screen Test Adventure, and that was a lot of fun. It was a new attraction. I worked with...
Now, did you work on crafting the attraction?
Yes.
Okay, so you were designing the building as well as designing the experience inside of it.
That's correct.
Wow, so how did that happen? What was that process like?
Well, it's in that time you kind of would get discovered if you did things well, and that's what was happening with me. As I would work on different projects, then I would get discovered. And I started working on this project, and I kind of took to it. Sometimes you just have a knack for picking something up, and thank God I had the knack, or I was going to get yelled and screamed at. Pardon me. So when I started working on that project, I worked with William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, because it was a Star Trek attraction that we were filming. It was an attraction that at that time we had VHS, and what it would do is it would green screen you into a Star Trek episode.
Oh, how
and
fun!
Then you had you had to read your screens and just follow along the cues. And as it was going, it was encoding you into a Star Trek episode. And you were working with William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy as Kirk and Spock, and it gave you a half an hour show. And when you left, you took it with you.
No way.
Yep, that was the first attraction I worked on. I was working on Hard Rock at the exact same time. I was working also on a couple of the restaurants that were there, and one of them was Lombard's Landing, and then there was Cafe La Bombe I worked on. And Richard Crane needed help over on Earthquake when I was starting to finish up the drawings actually finish up the project for Video Home Screen Test Adventure. And I went over and started working with him and then helping to fill some of the technical areas that he needed. And then, of course, then we started running out of manpower. So then I'm underneath there fixing and working, and I've got wrenches and everything else, and I'm greased up. But we got that attraction going too. So that was the first experiences I had in that. And then after that, I got a chance to work for Disney Universal again. I did the 25th anniversary show for Walt Disney World, the traveling show.
Oh, that's great.
I designed it. I was the TD on that, and I managed the construction for that project. And went to 22 different cities, and it was a big one. And we had 3-level stage, and I think I had about a 40 box on that. And they would take it to these different convention centers, and they would have all of the travel agents and people in those areas that would come in, and we had, basically about 1,000 to 2,000 people each time we opened that show.
Wow. So did you work on it while it was running, or what?
I did all of the first off, came up with the concept, put together all the set designs, and then all the lighting, special effects, sound effects. I worked with Disney to set those up because no one had any idea what I was doing. We were on the fly. Everything you do at Disney is like half the time, half the price. So we were flying to get that thing done, and really I should have had about 4 more months before they did it. I did it about a month and a half
to
get that done. I just about killed my crew. They were
Yeah.
working 24 hours a day just to get
Ooh.
this thing done. And then, we got it out, and Eisner was there at the time, and he came to the grand opening. He just loved it.
Wow, that's great. So what is your so when you're working on a project like that, like what's the process? Like, do you what's your creative research? How do you present your designs? Is there a back and forth? Like how does that go?
It depends on the project. With Disney, they came and they said, what we want to do is a travel trade show that shows off Disney.
So they gave you the concept.
That was just it.
Okay.
You just heard it.
And then what happens?
Then I went off to design what this could be.
Okay.
And I looked at Disney basically as several different parks, several different worlds, and I wanted to bring the three best worlds together. So of course I had downtown Disney, and then I had the castle in the center, and then on the other side I had some of the new projects that went on out there to kind of give an example of what it was. And I did the drawings for that first and renderings for that first, and then I did a mock-up of it, a quick model and maquette.
Okay,
And,
so you drew a 2D design
First off.
first. And did they see the 2D design first?
Yeah.
Okay, so you showed them the 2D design, and then you went and you built a mock-up?
Yeah, as you go along, you get approvals on each thing as you go. I think Doug
Okay.
Klug was the production manager over there for this project. And then, I just would present to them. But every week we'd have a meeting on Monday and a meeting on Wednesday.
Okay.
And we had about a 20-seat conference room, and they would have every seat would be filled. Now, here's the fun part about that. Every week, most of it would change.
Of course.
And it would change again. And finally, I just stopped the meeting. I said, all right, what do you do? And what do you do? I've never been that managed before in my life. So I found out that a lot of it wasn't direct management. There would be a lot of people there that were going to be the dancers because it was a dancing stage as well as presentation stage. And then I also did special effects in it, explosions and things like that. You get a little mini concept of the evening time fireworks and things like that.
Okay.
So as we went through that and they started approving each point, then we went into production.
So you're not just designing it by yourself. You're designing it, and then all of the people who need to use the venue come in and say, well, I need a little bit of this and I need a little bit of this.
Yes. They had a lot of input when it came down to that. That's why I felt like I was getting overmanaged.
Yeah. Although it also sounds really collaborative, too.
Yeah, it was. It was great. It was pretty good. I didn't have any problem with that. I just wanted to figure out who was on first.
Oh, yeah. Who's really in charge?
So, yeah. When I do most of these attractions, and I've done a lot of them where I actually develop the storyline first and run it through the client, and then we move on from there to basically storyboarding it, and then I move into maquettes and models of what it's going to be like, as well as some additional drawings. And once we're approved on that, then I start moving forward.
It's great. Now, when you say maquettes and models, what do you mean by maquettes?
A maquette is a sculptured piece.
Okay.
That'll show characters and if you've got costume characters, animation, or things like that are in there, those are maquettes. And then the models are basically architectural models. Most of them were study models, so they'd be all in white, but they kind of gave you the forms. And then some of them I would kind of do the artwork on paper before I would apply it to the model, so they got a better picture of it.
And do your maquettes, like what materials do you use for the maquettes and models?
That's Sculpey.
So Sculpey?
Yep, that's all
and
Sculpey.
Do you also use like foam core and stuff for the...
When I do the models, it's foam core and some gator board. It depends on how big the model is going to be.
Oh, wow. That's great. Okay, so you started with the 2D design, and then you have a conversation, and then that translates into a 3D model and some maquettes, and that translates into... what's the next step after that?
Getting an approval so we can all go to bed and get a good night's sleep for once. Once we got through that, and I had some very interesting people I had to get through on a lot of those. One of them was Jay Stein, who was the CEO of the first Universal Park, and we were building it. and he's kind of like one of the last of the big cigar movie mogul types.
Oh boy.
And so everything out of his mouth was, a noun, a verb, and some kind of a cuss word.
Sure.
So it kind of worked out that way. And people would come out of his office in tears, and then it would be my time to go in and present. So that was a real experience. I didn't have quite like that with Disney. Disney wasn't the yellers and screamers. That mostly was out at Universal at that time. And that's because everybody was under tremendous pressure.
Oh, sure.
When you get involved in a park and you've got a 5-year park and you got to get it up in 3 years, and then you start losing a whole lot of time on those, then all of a sudden you've got 2 years to get it up. So
Ooh.
it's just crazy. When I started working on the Hard Rock, it was a year and a half behind just on drawings. I had 4 months to get the drawings done, which actually took 5 with getting all the approvals from Robert Earl, who was in charge of Hard Rocks at that time.
Yeah.
And after that, we had 90 days to build it. I had a
Wait,
300
okay, so you have 4 months to 5 months to do the drawings, which doesn't even include the 3D models.
No.
And then you get 90 days to build it?
We had 90 days to build it. John McCann, his group was the contractor for it.
Ooh.
And I didn't have steel. I didn't have foundation to ground. And after 90 days, we had it up. I practically lived at foot steel because I put it on a 380-foot Fender Stratocaster guitar that bridged 3 roads. So I got discovered as a fast track artist. So a lot of my projects after that.
It's a pro and a con
were
right there.
Fast track, and it's kind of what I'm running into now here. So I guess I live well in chaos.
Oh, and so many of us do. Okay, so do you get to choose, so when you are managing a project like this, so you're coming in, you've brought the design, you've got the images and the models and the specs for this. Well, and that's a question. So I know you've got an architecture background. You are drawing the designs. Are you also the person who crafts the measurement and the safety features and stuff like that?
You're talking about detailing them. Mm-hmm. And there were some projects I detailed, and there were some projects I had a staff of people doing that work, and I just have to check and oversee that. For Universal Studios, I would start at 7:30 in the morning. I would go home at 3 at night. Mm-hmm. And that's because I had all those projects, and they were all behind, and nobody in the office knew how to detail that.
So you were detailing multiple projects at once.
Yeah, that's where my art ability came in. When you're dealing with three-dimensional thematic forms, it's not a lot of people that just go out and just start drawing those, and I could do it. Mm-hmm. So that, again, I got discovered. So they put more of that on me.
Ta-da!
So I lived in that kind of a world for a while, doing a lot of the detail, and I still do a lot of that now. Matter of fact, I was just down doing sketches for our haunted museum project, and just getting both the design dimensioned out and things like that, as well as the creative portion of it to keep that moving. So that's something that I just normally do.
That's great. So so what happens next? Like, do you get to choose your construction team? Do you get to choose the people who are building? Do you get to choose any of the folks who are putting on those final creative touches? Like, how does that work, going from detail into physical reality?
There's 2 areas of expertise that's involved in that. Mm-hmm. One is, no, I don't get a chance to choose the construction company, but I get a chance to review the qualifications of the construction companies that are coming on board. So once we've gotten one lined up, they basically are shell building. All the other things that are on the inside are fabricated, and I'm directly involved in choosing the fabricators and overseeing that. So all of the little elements, everything from some amazing chairs in restaurants to 32-foot monsters that are reaching for you. That's kind of in my realm to make sure that those get done. The animatronics are done correctly, and I use advanced animations and a lot of Intimate and a lot of those other groups that do that kind of work. And as I worked more in that field, I became more aware of different companies So that expanded me quite a bit. And then I worked with Richard Crane Productions and iTech Productions, and we'd always be out at IAPA, which is the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. And I would work the booths there and get a chance to meet a lot of the other vendors that were there. And that's what expanded my knowledge of who's out there and who could do that particular job. Mm-hmm. Then it's my job to put together that end of it. I oversee the special effects as well as a lot of the lighting, the theatrical lighting. And then, of course, the fabrication of all the elements that go into it.
Okay. That's great. That's great. And so what kind of approval, what does it mean to oversee? Like, does that mean that you're scheduling things? Does that mean that you are approving fabrics? Does that mean that you're making sure people get paid? Like, what does managing that entail?
Everything you just said.
Is there more?
It seems like it. There's a lot of things that are involved in that, from working with, to take an idea, when you've got a theatrical element that's in there, and that could be an animatronic piece that's interacting. And I'll give you an idea of what that's like. I worked on the Samsung Aerospace Museum in South Korea. Mm-hmm. And one of the design elements I had in there was an opera singer who sung in Korean and had the full regalia and everything, and there was things like that.
Oh, how cool!
Are just kind of wild.
Was this a live opera singer or an animatronic?
It was animatronic.
Oh my goodness!
So I worked with Dance Animations on that one because they're one of the best at doing that. But he had to have all of the movements and everything. They're South Koreans are very into karaoke. Mm-hmm. So they know what the songs sound like and how they should be sung. So you have to do a really good job with this, or they get, Mr. Fred, what is this? So then I have to do the best I can to get that right. So I didn't want to go through those, and I pay a lot of attention to that. And there's a lot of flying involved when you're doing a lot of these projects. And when I was doing that project, I was also doing a project in England. So I would fly in from England in the evening. I would go out for Korea in the morning. I was on airplanes for like 22 hours. And this was kind of a constant circuit for a while. And that's fun. It's great, but after a while, you're just glad you can get first class because they have, nice beds on Delta in first class. And that was the only way you could survive things like that. And decent food, because you're running through food. But, that's kind of what happens with all that. On the construction side, and of course I do program everything and make sure everybody gets paid. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing everybody will tell you: if you work for Fred, you get paid. Because there's a lot of times when companies try to hedge on that, and I make sure everybody got paid.
That's huge.
Boy, is it! Everybody loves you after that. I give them a call; they come right there.
Yep.
So anyway, when it comes down to the construction side, I'm involved in all of the program elements, which include scheduling all of the construction from when they first start breaking ground all the way up. A lot of times I would do the presentations to the zoning and planning boards to get permitting for that, and then also with the building departments. When I started doing Universal Studios here, they had no building codes for attractions at the City of Orlando because it's a City of Orlando project area. Oh. So I wrote those, and they're still using most of those today.
Oh, my goodness. So you have people, you are saving people, and you have designers cursing your name all at the same time.
You know what? That is probably true, though. That's why my ear always burns. But anyway, yep, that's true.
So how did you... So you've just talked a ton about attraction design and ride design and this jet-setting lifestyle. And right now, you are the technical director for a live event design and production major that works primarily in tandem with the theater performance major, producing... I'm counting in my head, a musical... 2 straight plays and a second musical. So four major shows a year, plus supporting our dance and music productions. So that feels like a really big shift.
You know what? It really isn't, because in my resume, you run into a lot of shows that I've done. Not just so much the anniversary show, and that was a big show, but I do a lot of shows that don't move. And I did Johnny Rocket and the Clan of the Cobra Master in South Korea. That was at Richard Crane Productions when I did that. Started off with story and storyboards and worked it all the way down. And that was a show that when you build it, it's not going to move for, 5 years, 10 years. That's the difference between live show and attraction shows. And I think Johnny Rocket went on for 15 years.
Oh, my goodness.
So that everything has to be done in a way that, first off, all of your platforms have to be expandable, because new technology comes in and you need to be able to do that. And back at that time, we could card a Mac and get a whole thing going. I can do the same thing on a thumb drive now for what we were doing at that point in time. So they have to be able to be upgraded from time to time, but a lot of those shows would still run. I think Video Home Screen Test Adventure ran for 14 years before they changed that.
Oh, wow.
Over. And it was right next to Kong. So about the time that they changed Kong into the Mummy, it was about the time they started renovating that area that was next to it, which was Video Home Screen Test Adventure. But they had gotten to the point that at that time when they were actually putting it all on disc. So it went from VHS to disc, so you got to be able to, you got to have platforms that'll do that. That attraction, by the way, had the largest video wall in the world at that time. I was in the Guinness World Book of Records for that. And they make them things huge, and I was like nowhere near that. But, again, you have to be ready for things to change, and they do.
Yeah.
So a lot of the rides and attractions usually have about a 5-year life.
Okay.
Depending, and I'm really using Universal as an archetype on that, because they would always follow the trend of pop culture when it comes down to movies. When you went over to Disney, you had It's a Small World After All for the last 30 years before they decided to upgrade that. And, it was just trying to find equipment that would work with what they had before, because they didn't know anything about platform upgrades or anything back at that point in time. So it kind of looked a little hokey, but you don't need that much for kids. If it's a small
classic
puppet, though, they love it to pieces. So. But that's usually the lifespan, and that's why I'm working with the students now to understand when we're doing theatrical shows. I always talk to them about, now, if you're in the theme parks, this is what's going to happen. So I want them to have both of those opportunities. And when they get out in the street, it's not going to be all stage show that they're going to get, even though there's, I call it 38 opportunities to go into their fields directly from Valencia College, and I went over that with them in the beginning. But when you start doing theme park attractions, it's a little bit different, because everything's permanent, and permanent being 5 years, and usually they won't change until the end of that. So that's what I try to do with our students here, is to kind of help them to bridge between the two so that they can go out and talk with these different groups. So we're getting ready to get advisory boards with Universal. They've already had a lot of contact with Disney. They're looking for specific things, even though they have shows.
Yeah.
Not as many as Disney does, but they're also listening to the fact that we're teaching them how to do theme park work. And that should, make that a little bit broader and give them more opportunities to grow in this field.
Well, and so how does your because it sounds like you're really interested in design, but a lot of times in theater, you're really working with a director and another designer, and then you're implementing somebody else's vision. So why did you choose to make that shift?
You learn how to stay in your lane.
Okay.
And when I have a specific job description and they say, this is what we need, that's what I do. What I tell my students sometimes is, you're not designing it, you're building it. Or if we got our opportunity, and if I'm doing any of the stage shows as a designer, they will be designing it and building it, because I want them to have that experience. And I push them that way when we're talking now and doing the labs and building this stuff, And I always ask this question. I've always been this way too. This is what we got. Now, how do we make it better?
Nice.
And let their minds go. And you will be amazed at what these kids come out with. And it's just, you got to realize that they're in a different genre, a different pop culture. They got a different view of a lot of things. And if you don't listen to them, you miss it. You're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
miss it. And the biggest thing that's bad about theme park and or show, if you miss it, you're a million miles away.
Yep. Yep. That's really neat. So why are you choosing to go into teaching? Because again, you've come from this jet setting lifestyle of designing and managing your own creative projects, and now you're choosing to teach.
When I got out of Michigan State, the Lansing Community College asked me to come and teach in the areas of human environment and design, construction, interior design, some of the courses that they had there, including drawing and perspective rendering and those types of things. And that was the first job that I had when I got out of college. And it's the only other thing I love as much as designing was when I was teaching. And I'm having just the same feelings that I have had for decades over there right now with the kids. It's just a lot of fun, just the interaction, getting people to open up their minds, trying new things, the excitement they have when they do it. I mean, that is infectious.
Right.
So I enjoy it, and I try to give an infectious attitude to everybody. So they're excited and ready to, they can't wait to come in. They come in before the work blocks. They're sitting back there. All right, can we work now? So, okay, let's go. And then get them on in there. So I'm having absolutely zero problem at having people show up to the work blocks to get things done because they're really excited about it. And I do give them as much leeway to do their construction and doing different applications and things to let them experience what's in their own heads and see it. And I think that's some of the most rewarding things in the world, and that's why I'm doing this now.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So do you see opportunities for our students to bridge from this 2-year program into the local industry?
Absolutely. Like I said, there really isn't a program out there that takes you through learning how to build theme park attractions. You actually get involved in different areas and you kind of get discovered into other areas, and it's still the same today.
Well, UCF just started a themed attraction. I believe it's a master's, maybe an MFA.
Yeah, and everybody's trying to find a way to start filling that gap because it's a big gap.
Yeah.
When I started working on what I wanted to do as far as that career was concerned, Harvard University had an postgraduate course for themed entertainment. They were just trying to get involved in it, and that was in 2000. So everybody's been trying to figure out how to develop that. And I'd love to be able to do something like that here. It takes a little bit of time because you got to build out a department and you got to build out a faculty and you have to build out a curriculum. The biggest thing is that I've already had the connections into the parks to be able to get the get advisors and get instructors, and they're even starting to talk about sending their kids over to us in LEDP to learn, and that's really important because that's the bridge. And after that, I just start poaching, instructors from, and people that are older and loved doing it, but they're not in themed entertainment right now because it's like when you've been out of it for a couple of years, it's like you died. So they're always looking for a way to get back in. And these are some of the most talented people you can ever run into. They may not be as current on technology as now, but when it comes down to teaching somebody how to build these things, how to design these things, how to storyline for them, how to manage the music and all of the pre-show film work that you have to do. And it's a great opportunity for these kids to learn that kind of stuff. And when they get into the parks, they get discovered.
Wow. That's fantastic. And what kind of special effects do they need to know how to make? I know you've said a lot about lighting and special effects.
Oh, we're doing that now.
Yeah?
We've got them in there. They're working on them, showed them how to do the top of the crypt as it opens on its own, and then how to rig up an arm that comes out and reaches for you. all the lighting that goes into that, because we can't use the smoke because of the particular fire alarm system that we have in there. So we have to use other ways to do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can do that by a blaring blue light that kind of pierces out, because that hazes the eye. And when you've worked in these industries for a while, you kind of learn how
Sure.
to use those to create effects. And when that dims down, then there's something there, so it's kind of a magician's trick. We've got a production coming up called She Kills Monsters, and I have a lot of interesting effects for that we want to do. And I'm not opposed to using anoids and shooting a Tesla shot across and you may see that in this upcoming haunted museum production.
Okay.
That's going to release something, so it's things like that.
Nice.
I'm teaching them. And how to create illusion and those things. And you're going to see those in this particular production too.
That's fantastic. So I have a couple of questions that I like to ask everybody at the end. It's some rapid fire questions. So we've got about a little bit of time. So question one is fill in the blank. Creativity is?
Self-expression.
All right. What motivates you the most?
The excitement I get from others.
And in 1 to 3 sentences, describe your very favorite creative project.
Oh, boy. Oh, okay. Now that's a good one, because I really enjoy a lot of my projects. I think the one that I enjoyed oh boy, there's so many of them. I don't know how to answer your question.
Your top 3. What's one of your top 3?
Grand Country was one of them. That was a project that I went into that was an old Walmart building and an old pole barn retail out on the corner, and then changed that into an entire development that was themed. That was 17 years ago, and they've never gone down. They've only gone up. I think the last 2 projects I did there was the indoor water park, and then did another extension of that indoor water park, which were the first in Missouri. So I got so many projects that are just kind of like cool.
So your favorite, one of your favorites was the experience in the Walmart. What was that called?
That's Grand Country, and Grand Country was it was a restaurant. It was all themed across itself to be this Ozark component. And it had an indoor mini golf, and I had rainstorms in there and everything that would happen at different times. And it had the restaurant was all themed out, so that was pretty much a lot of fun. There was a fiddle that you go into past to get into the building in a glassed area, and it was the largest in the world, 42 feet. The pole barn had a 80-foot banjo that goes out of the building. That was the biggest in the world. That's still in the Book of Records. So a lot
was
of
it a functioning banjo?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's prop banjo. No, we didn't have the money for the functioning one.
Like Paul Bunyan's actual banjo.
Yeah, it would be. So that was a really great project because it went over years, and everything was kind of indoors with that. Even though I did an outdoor water park, splash park for them, but everything kind of happened indoors. And last big project we did for them was the indoor three-level go-kart track. So, it's just one of those places that just never goes down. It's been one of the biggest successes in that area.
Wow.
And it's outlasted a lot of the big theaters like Andy Williams and people like it's outlasted them. So it's been good for Glenn and his group.
That's great. Question 4. What is the best or the worst advice you have ever received regarding your field?
You'll never be anything.
Ooh.
That was the worst. And that was also the biggest challenge because that put a burr under my tail like you cannot believe.
Okay.
And, a lot of times you'll run into people that have a little bit of a jealous streak, and it'll come out like that. And do not take that to heart and to use it for fuel. And you can expand yourself and your world, and you will never look back. And I never looked back at the guy.
Wow. How many people actually in the creative field have somebody say that to them?
You know, it would happen a lot in the older days. I don't think around now because there's a lot of things about toxic workplaces. But back, I've been in some toxic workplaces. That would
Yeah.
be some of the most amazing things. And, you know, when you leave out of there at the end of the day, you start questioning, well, basically, I began to lose the will to live when I would work at some of those places.
Oh, yeah.
It was just that bad, and you'd have to drag yourself in the morning. But, you know, when you go into another project and you don't have that, you're like twice as good because you want it to be.
That's great. So what, and this is leads into this, what is one warning sign that you watch for when considering taking on a project?
One was try to find out who they worked with before and if they got paid.
Okay.
That's number one. That's the big warning sign because you can pour your life into somebody.
If the guy before you didn't get paid.
Yep. But it also tells you how to manage your contracts. You always put a misery factor in there, and you will get paid, even if you don't get paid.
What is a misery factor?
Oh, 15%.
Aha. Got it.
Yeah, that works out, and usually it does. I also look for and talk to some of the people that are going to be in management, and especially the management that's going to be over me. And I ask them what they've done because it's interesting to have somebody complain that has never done that before. And they really don't have any advice they can give you as to how to do it better. So I like to understand what they have done before I get involved with these types of projects. And that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. I know I'm always going to have one of the rough ones. You know, it always happens.
Yep.
There's one in every crowd, but you just can't let that one person take all the steam away from you. You work with them, you do your job, and then you go on with everybody else, and you create great things.
Nice. Well, and that's the joy about project-based work, right?
Yes.
You know, the project ends.
Yep.
And if it's a rough project, it's going to end. And if it's a great project, it's going to end.
Yeah, that's exactly just you don't want it to go away. So that's I think why I loved Grand Country because it never went away. They'd call me every 3 years, 5 years. They want to add this, upgrade that. You know.
And did you like working with the people?
Oh yeah, they're the most fantastic people on the planet.
Oh, and see, isn't that the thing?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the thing? So how do you stay current in your practice? Like, do you have routine, observations, practice classes? How do you stay current?
In themed entertainment, when IAPA comes around, they always have a lot of seminars from very, very talented people who talk over different subjects, and I will attend a lot of those. I look for conferences in different places, and then, go to those. And they may not even be specifically in my field. It may be in graphics or in something else, but something that becomes related to what I like to do. And that just keeps me current with a lot of things. I haven't been to as many things as I'd like to go to, but and that's going to probably change here in a little bit. But yeah, just trying to stay current. You just want to get into the seminars with people that are talking about current things.
All right. So you're talking about going to trainings, going to conferences, going to groups.
You get an idea of where all this comes from if you get the magazines, or we call them the rags, from different fields like dance and theater. They have their rags out. Take a look at those. IAPA has several groups that are within them, like the Fun World is one of the big ones, and you get a chance to see what's going on there. And you get a lot of articles that you may never have even noticed or thought about before. A good one is Morgan's Inspiration, and you can look them up online.
Okay.
And that was a water park that a gentleman built for his children who were handicapped because they couldn't find a water park for handicapped kids. So the entire park was completely accessible.
My goodness.
They did it in San Antonio, Texas. And in the first year, they had visitation from all 50 states and 64 countries.
That is huge.
Worldwide. It was the biggest thing, and it was because it was such a need. So you get a chance to see things like that, and it really opens up your mind to say, why aren't people doing more of that?
Well, and when it comes to accessibility, if you design with accessibility in mind, all of a sudden it's not a problem.
They came up with an idea, and they
But
went
if you're
to a
trying to
major university.
retroactively make it accessible,
Well, there's a way to
hard.
do it, and these guys kind of came up with a way to do that. They went to a major university, I think it was Pittsburgh, and they said, "What do we do about wheelchairs in wet areas? Because the kids want to be able to move around and play."
Yeah.
They came up with a phenomenal wheelchair that is compacted air. There is no electronics or electricity involved, and it's all done by air. And it will last for 8 hours, and then they have to put them in the compressors and get that going again. So, something as simple as that, but it opened up the entire park to the kids.
Wow.
And then it's being able to get them, the ramping system that you do that gets them into all the different things that they enjoy. There's trapeze, we call it trapeze slides that they can get on. It's like they're in the water slide, and all you're doing is splashing the water at them, and it's as though they're getting that entire experience. So things like that seem kind of like, wow, that doesn't seem like that's that big a deal to think about. But that's why I try to get the kids to open their minds. I always say, how do we make it better?
Wow, that's huge. Okay, next question. So you are creatively blocked, but the deadline is real. How do you get unstuck?
I rarely get that stuck. I kind of live in chaos, and I enjoy it. So what I do is I start prioritizing instantly. I will drop some things off if they just aren't going to be the best thing in the world, and that cuts some time. So I immediately look for what I can drop off for now and what we can pick up if we have time later. And I hit all the big things. I work back off of my schedules. And then I find out how much time I need for X, Y, and Z going forward till I get to, in the case of parks, soft opening, or in the case of a show, the same thing. And I start at that point, when I get closer to it, finding all the detailed stuff that we could do that we dropped off that now we have time to pick up. And then it's just managing your people. Nobody sits on their hands with me, and the kids over there will tell you that right now.
That's great.
I keep them all moving. They're always functioning, and that's why we're pushing so far ahead on a attraction that should take 4 months, and I got 6 weeks to do it.
That's great. Well, and so it sounds like you get unstuck because you've overplanned. You've cut things back as you had to, and then you always have extra stuff that you can pull from as you're moving.
Yeah, I'll as you're going through, you find certain people that are really good at certain things. And then that just stays on the back of your mind. And they would be really good at doing this last piece of finishing touch, or this last thing that I need built. And they're pretty good and fast at doing it. So I would assign 2 or 3 of them over to that. And we were able to do that. You don't know that group until you work with that group.
Yeah.
And then once you work with that group, you know that group. So you can figure out who it is you can stick in that spot. Well,
So you also get unstuck by delegating.
By delegating.
That's great. Okay, so in one sentence, what does being an artist mean to you?
Freedom. It just means freedom. When I create, I feel the most comfortable in my world.
That's great. Name one artist, past or present, whose work brings you great joy.
Andy Warhol.
Yeah? How come?
Looking at one image and then saying, I can possibly make 8 images out of this one image, and that one image doesn't have to change. Just your mood has to. And I can change your mood by the way you see this and what you're imagining into it. He was able to open up people's minds into certain pieces of art because you had to imagine your way through it. And I really love Andy Warhol's work.
That's fantastic. And last question. What is one thing that you are deeply grateful for right now?
People.
Yeah?
I really enjoy working with a lot of different people, and I wouldn't trade them for the world. They not only do they make my life a lot easier in doing work or just relaxing. It's just having people around you that you enjoy. They enjoy you, and it's just like you pick up a conversation that you had 2 years ago, and it's just like it never changed. So yeah, people.
People. Sounds like community too.
It is.
Yeah. Well, Fred, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. I am hoping to have you back later with a team of folks. You guys might have heard he said a little bit about the Florida Museum of Cursed Artifacts, a haunted attraction that's coming to us on October 27th. Or no, it's opening on the 27th, and then it plays through October 31st. And Fred is one of the major creative voices in this. It was launched by our LEDP department chair, Kristen Abel. And it sounds like you've been playing a really major role in supporting that design.
Any way we can support it, we're going to do it, but we're building it.
That's great. So at some point, I am hoping to have Kristen and Fred and Jenny Kopp, the director, come in, and perhaps some of the student designers and student actors come in and talk a little bit more about this project. And that's going to happen right before it opens. But I'm really excited about that, especially after this conversation. I think it's going to be just thrilling. So just a reminder, I like to bookend with our events. This is the School of Arts and Entertainment, and we have an amazing season coming up. Please join us on September 21st for Vanishing Florida, Photographs by Kevin Boldnow. We're going to have our opening reception for that gallery show on Thursday, September 21st at 6:30. It's at the East Campus Anita S. Wooten Gallery. The photographs are just incredible, y'all. We're hoping to have Kevin on the show a little bit later, so you'll get to hear a little bit more about his process. After that, we have 2 of our fall reading series stage readings coming up. The first is How I Learned to Drive, directed by Aradhana Tiwari, and that is going to play on Friday, September 22nd and Saturday, September 23rd, both at 7:30. This is a free reading. It will be in the atrium of Building 3, right beside the black box. After that, you're going to see the fall reading series, reading number 2, The Artist and the Scientist. I'll be directing that. It is a musical, and it is Saturday, October 21st, and Sunday, we'll have a matinee on Sunday. That will be October 22nd, again in the atrium. I'm really excited about it. It's just a charming story. And what I love about it is that it's a new work. I love experiencing new work and exposing our students to the process of how creative pieces evolve. And then after that, we've got that Florida Museum of Cursed Artifacts, and then we have an entire music season coming up. It's going to be a great year, and I'm just so thankful to be here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to Embrace the Bold on the Valencia College radio station, and please join us on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook at Valencia Arts and Entertainment, and you can find us at the same name on Instagram. So please follow us, please join us, please come to our events, and we will see you next week at 5 o'clock on Wednesday. Talk to you soon. Bye.